Budget Committee to order and ask for approval of the minutes from our previous meeting 2-3 months ago.
Motion.
Moved by Supervisor Strauss, seconded by Supervisor Garrity. Any additions, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So the first item is the review of the 2019 budget. The tax levy will increase with this proposed budget by 2.47%. Out of 2.7% that we possibly could go. If you look at the summary sheet here, last page, it'll show you we have we're $98,891 under the tax cap. And you also have in your packet there, you have the appropriations, either increases or reductions that I've made throughout the budget process, and also the revenue recommendations. New positions that are created within this budget is one is a human resources clerk, part-time at $19,200, which is 24 hours a week. Another one is a computer help desk tech, number 3, for information technology for IT at $44,000. Another one is a communications officer for the 911 center at the Sheriff's Department at the amount of $40,564. And the last one is a weights and measures inspector, a temporary position at $10,000. 4 patrol officers were asked for. That is not in the budget. And also a building maintenance mechanic for the Sheriff's Law Enforcement Division was also asked for, and that is not in. And the legal size sheet there is the personnel requests. These are the various changes that have happened, either 2.6% raise, or it's combined with grant funds, or positions have been deleted and other positions created. There's a lot there to look at all at once. So it's an overall increase of $153,115 to the general fund. It's a $34,000 decrease to the road fund, and a $10,000 decrease to the machinery fund as far as personnel requests. Currently, everyone gets a 2.6% pay salary increase. And there were 6 positions that their salaries were adjusted, which is considerably less than prior years. And you have the non-bargaining salaries And you also have the elected salaries. I'll move on to number 2, while you're still looking through the paperwork there. To review the usage of sales tax. In 2017, we budgeted $50,197,000. This year, 2018, we budgeted $51,024,000. And in 2019, we're going to budget at the 2017 actual amount, which is $52,155,000, which is an increase of $1,130,000, and the county gets the benefit of $25,525,000 approximately. So a little less than half.
Frank, can you help me figure out where that is? Good. It's around here somewhere, right?
The sales tax.
You would have to look within the treasurer's budget. That's where that number will be.
It's not on the handouts because we didn't adjust that from the department request stage.
Didn't find them either.
Yeah, that money comes through the treasurer's office, so that the sales tax is within his budget.
So you're saying the sales tax budget for 2019 is the equivalent to 2017, is that correct?
The actual amount.
Okay, the actual that we brought in?
Correct.
I think that's conservative, that's good. And one question, Chairman,
Yes,
if I
go
may.
ahead.
We're on track, Mike here, what are we on track this year, is in an estimate for sales tax revenue?
Right now, we're a little bit over 5%.
Okay, so,
Over collections
and so 5% over the 2017 number we're gonna use for 2019 to 2017 budget, so 5% of, would be about a couple million?
5%. Now, should I just,
Yes.
that's unfair?
Yes, you can.
I would be very cautious about that figure until we get into late spring, because you never know when the state can all of a sudden say, oh, we're doing a readjustment, and it wasn't exactly what you thought, type situation. So, before you start, one of those things, don't count the chickens before they're hatched type thing, just be very careful about that figure. I'm very enthused about the fact that it is that high, but I just want to put a little caution there that you may not end up with that. Not end up with 5%.
Thank you.
Yes, Mrs. Bramer. Ms.
I guess I'd like to know what was the reasoning for increasing the contingency account line for 2019 by such a large amount?
The money in there that's over $275,000 is for the settlement of the PBA contract, which I think is going on 2 years now.
Yeah, it's still in interest arbitration. We have a contingency this year to pay out the 18 salaries if it's awarded, and we have an amount in for the 19 salaries as well that We have not, we don't put it into the sheriff's payroll. We put it into contingency where we would transfer it out when the time comes.
Sorry guys, I'm trying to follow this. That's not handouts either?
It is.
It's on the summary sheet there, if you find the contingent account,
It's the one.
fourth page in, right at the top of the page.
Yeah.
Part of this is carried over from this year, but they still haven't settled the contract, so more was added.
Got it.
One of the strategies that I'm going to propose to the board is that how we got to 2.47% increase was by reducing the requests that were close to $2.5 million. And the way that I'm proposing that we do that is to use our fund balance in 2019. Currently, our fund balance is around $19,500,000, approximately, maybe a little less. If you take off the $1,257,000 that we budgeted to spend this year within the 18 budget, that puts you down to $18,243,000. Is what I've done is gone through the budget, and I've taken things out of the budget, and I've put them on a fund balance list to say. And my way of thinking is that after the first of the year, if the board feels that they want to do these things, they can appropriate the money out of fund balance and pay for it. At that time, pay cash, and most of these things are one-shot item. And I'll run down the list that I have here. There's about a half a dozen items. The Sheriff's Department requested $297,000 for vehicles. $199,600 is within the reserve, which is funded. So that leaves $97,400 for the remaining vehicles they would like to purchase. And I'm not opposed to doing that. I just think that we need to pay cash for it and not raise taxes to do it. I went into the Sheriff's 3110 law enforcement budget, and the .2s added up to $38,800. I removed all of that. All of those things need to be purchased, but I think that we can pay cash for it and be done with it. I did the same thing within the 3150, the corrections budget. 210, 250, and 260. They add up to $32,050. And again, I support purchasing what the sheriff has in there. I just think that we can pay cash for it and not raise taxes to do it. IT, the website upgrade, $35,000 has been requested. Again, I think that's a one-time expense. I mean, we're not going to upgrade the website every year, not to that extent. So I think that's something that we should do, and we can pay for it. The railroad was proposed at $178,000. I reduced that to $78,000. So there's $100,000 there that when the time comes will have to be asked for and appropriated. The bridge program within the road budget is $170,000 of capital expense. Again, I think it's a good program. I just think that for 2019 we can pay cash and take care of it and not raise taxes. Within the machinery budget, the DM budget, approximately 810,000 was requested. Actually, it was 1.3 at the beginning. From the 810, I took $142,000 for a TC 57H loader. And I feel that if they want the loader, they can come back and ask the committee, and we could pay cash for the loader. And you know, that's the desire. Paving, the requested amount was $2,766,000. I reduced that to $2,566,000, which is actually $200,000 more than 2018. And actually, the total amount requested was $3.2 million. So that's $633,000 to get us to $3.2 million. And again, the board can appropriate that money. We've done this in the past, and you can appropriate 633 or 500 or whatever the desire. If you do all those items, it adds up to $1,249,000. And if you subtract that from the $18,242,000, you end up at $16,993,000. If the sales tax stays where it currently is, with the increase that we have, that'll add approximately $2 million back into that number. So you'll be just under 19 million. And usually each year, within each budget, there's anywhere from $1 million to $1.5 million that does not get spent. That falls to fund balance. So that'll put us back up to, my calculation is about $20,300,000. So in my opinion, we accomplished the items we need to accomplish, or we would like to accomplish, and we kind of end up in the same place, provided that sales tax stays where it is. That doesn't fall off the cliff. And we don't incorporate this money into the budget, because once it's into the budget, it's like the 1.257 million. You have to keep spending it each year to keep the budget the same, or reduce the budget, or raise it in property tax. So, to pay for these things, which are, most of them are one-shots, to pay for them cash, then you're done with it. It's not in the budget, and you've already raised that tax money. So that's how I approached it. That's how I got to 2.47%. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just a quick question. Well, actually, two of them. If you can just quickly explain to me on page 1, and let's go with the legislative board. It was $1,135,337 adopted budget in 18. And if I'm reading this correctly, the department's request was $1,098,582. Is that correct? That's what the department was asking for?
Yes.
And the budget request was $1,112,627. My question would be, if the department was requesting $1,098,582, why are we increasing that to $1,112,627? If I'm reading this correctly.
I think part of it is increases in contracts.
But wouldn't that be part of the department's request? Come to you to request?
Not necessarily, no.
Budget?
It could have come afterwards, or it could have been decided afterwards.
Okay.
And also, salary increases are not in.
They're not.
They're not in the department requests.
Oh, they don't come in.
Right. They're done near the end, actually.
Okay.
Part of that, Supervisor Diamond, was NACO, which we addressed in the last committee cycle, so that had to be added to the budget.
The other question I have is, and I'm just trying to get through this, so I'll read it in greater detail later. How much unrestricted fund balance are we using to balance this budget?
Balance this budget?
Yes.
If you look on the back, just flip
Okay.
it over, it'll show you what's being used. The general fund is at $1,257,422. And it's gonna be the same.
It's gonna be the same.
Same as
Last year.
Same as this year. And then you can see county road
Oh, right
machine.
here, surplus, that's under Westmount, that's
No.
under your surplus general fund?
Mm,
Trying to find the number,
Yeah, it's under surplus, yeah.
$1,257,000?
Right
Okay,
at
I
the
got it.
bottom.
Yeah.
I see it,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep. Yes, Mr. Weil.
Sure, thank you. I believe I understand what you're doing with the general fund and the budgeting of the revenues that the county gets. Can you help me understand what we expect the fund balance to be this year, at the end of this year, as it was at the beginning of this year, at the end of last year? Do we have any projections right now?
At the end of 2018?
Yeah, basically, what's our fund balance doing? Is it going up? Is it going down?
I would add 3 million to what we have now and subtract the 1,257,000. And that should...
So we're increasing it by 1 point something million.
Yep. Yep.
And that's...
So then we'd be up to, what, 21 million. And the last I knew, our upper limit's 16 million, so I mean, I don't know. How far do we want to go? Yes, Mike?
Chairman, I just wanted to comment on the fund balance and what you were talking about, the one-time expenses. And our ceiling is 16 million by the resolution. And I think it's prudent right now, when times are good, if we're going to do one-time expenses, and we do have the cash on hand, and if all holds the way you explained it, which I agree with, I think it is a good time to do those one-time expenses, just so long as, like I said before, we make sure that that sales tax for this year is what it appears to be.
Yeah, it all hinges on that, absolutely. But again, that's to me, another positive to doing it this way. You don't have to do any of these things.
Right.
You don't have to spend any of that money. It's up to the board. Or, you know.
There's a couple other things that might want to add in. One would be just to start funding for the election, voting machines that we're going to have to, in the capital, maybe putting a little bit into a capital for over a couple-year period to lessen the flow of that, because last estimate was a little over $500,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it more like that?
Or other things like that, maybe, that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
Yes, Mr. Straw.
All right, to tag off what Mike Swan was saying and others. All right, so, and I'm trying to find it. It'd be nice to have an executive summary balance sheet, but I'm trying to find everything as we're talking about it, and I'm having a difficult time.
Yep, it's a lot of papers.
My question is, all right, if the revenue, so I'm looking at the revenue sheet, I just don't see it, maybe it's there. How much revenue are we expecting to get from sales tax revenue this year? I heard a conversation that we're expecting the same as we got in 2017. Okay, I wrote that down, right?
No.
That's
No.
the amount you're budgeting, the same, he's budgeting the actual amount for 2017 in this budget.
For the 19 budget.
You are budgeting expected sales tax revenue. That's what I thought.
The actual,
That's what I thought I said. and I'm looking for approval, but I don't see the numbers.
They're in the treasurer's budget.
Yeah, that's what he said.
But we don't have available. All right, so, all right, my question, I guess, is how much of an increase are we expecting for 2019 in sales tax revenue over 2018? What percentage? Because I know Mike said that we're at 5%, but we gotta be cautious about that.
Right.
So what percentage increase are we looking at for expected sales tax revenue? What are we projecting into 2019 in comparison to what we had for 2018?
I think we'd go back to the 5-year plan, it'd be like 1.5. I don't believe we're gonna, I'm not comfortable that the sales tax is gonna increase by 5-6% next year.
All right, and that's fine, and I heard that. So, just to confirm, we're looking at a sales tax revenue of 1.5% gain over last year,
Over this year,
this year.
right, over 2018 for 2019.
1.5%, okay.
That's where I would go back to, because again, I don't think we're gonna be at 5 or 6%, but, we can always hope so.
No, I will still be conservative, but in doing my budget,
Yep.
I can assume 2019 sales tax revenues to be at 1.5% above what I got this year. Okay,
Yep.
that's what's going on in my head.
Good. Yes. Doug?
We seem to be in a very healthy position with the fund balance and so forth increasing, at least what I'm interpreting, up to around 21 million. What would the cost be if we had a flat tax increase? So no increase at all. How many dollars would come out of that $21 million fund surplus to equate to a zero tax, flat tax, no tax increase?
$1,052,443 plus 10,000. We just spent 10 this morning.
Thank you. So if we took out $1 million, we could get to a zero, we could get to a no tax increase. If we take $1 million out of our projected fund surplus, we could actually get to a zero tax increase, flat, no tax increase.
Yeah, in theory, yeah.
I would like us to think about that.
Okay.
I mean, my belief is money best spent is the actual taxpayers having money to spend it. That's my personal belief, but I also understand government has to be funded and so forth. I'm not naive.
Right.
But you have done a good job of getting to a very advantageous fund balance position, and that's a good job to you, Frank, and other people. So are we at the time now to say, hey, we don't need to increase taxes next year? We can, and I think that's a viable option for us to consider because of the fact that we're so healthy. I'm just throwing that out there, Frank.
Okay. Supervisor Sokol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would have to disagree with that. I mean, looking at the 5-year projections, we saw it going down to a scary number. I mean, the treasurer needs 10 grand to operate. I'm a little nervous about that. I'm sorry, 10 grand.
I didn't want that figure.
10 million, yeah.
Yeah, we're not getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, I would have my caution lights on.
Mr. Garrity.
Well, I just think there's other factors in there too. That 2% tax cap factor will factor into that amount of raise too. I mean, you gotta figure out next year if your growth factor is reduced, you won't have the opportunity to raise. You may put yourself into a box with the growth factor, figuring that growth factor in, because this year it's at 2%. First time it's been there since almost 2007, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's been...
First time we've had it. So your growth factor factors into the amount of budget too. I understand what you're saying about no tax increase, but that's not going to necessarily equate to a reduction in tax by community, because some assessed values go up, some go down. So, I mean, if you think that the bill for everybody's gonna be the same as it was last year, it will change. Am I correct in that? Am I right? So, even though it looks nice and you could put it at a zero tax increase, it's, when you get your bill, yours could be more or less based on the way the assessed values change. And the other thing is, you know, I'd be very, very cautious about that because of the way the tax caps operate. I mean, we all know that it fluctuates, and if you were to, you could potentially put yourself into a box. And like Matt said, 5 years from now, we see a decrease in the amount of cash on hand. And all we got to do is have one bad sales tax year. And I can tell you, from being budget officer in 2009, I raised sales tax $500,000 to appease one of my colleagues on the board 1 year, and we took a dive on sales tax. We didn't meet our budget, and it took us three or 4 years to recover from that. So I'd be very careful. I mean, it's a nice thing. You know, it's nice to feel good about doing it, but I just say, boy, be careful, because with this tax cap and everything we deal with now, looking out to the future, you may handcuff yourself, Dougie, I think, but it's worth a shout.
Mr. Diamond.
Chairman, thank you. Going back to the question I asked, to balance this budget, we're using $1,257,422, the same as we did in 18. Now, the question he raised about holding the line on taxes, and your response was $1 million something. Was that in addition to this $1.2 million
Yes.
already appropriated to balance the budget?
Yeah,
So
that's...
in essence, you'd be using...
That's the amount to be raised by tax.
Okay, that's my question.
$1,052,000, yep.
But historically speaking, you've been able to demonstrate through budgeting efforts to keep your expenses underneath the appropriation. Is there any area of reduction across the board where you could fine-tune that expense side, where you're lowering your liabilities across the board? Meaning, if you're planning right now that you're going to be under budgeted, you're going to appropriate, I'm going to use for example, say $2 million, which is hypothetical. And you're already figuring that you're going to come in under budget $500,000. Are we appropriating too much to the expense side, or can we trim that down so that difference between what you're anticipating coming forward at the end of the calendar year is less? You're actually building the fund balance by increasing your expense side, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I guess, you know,
Could we trim more?
you could draw that correlation, but if you look at the reductions in appropriations, I wouldn't say we're exactly building our expense side.
Well,
And there is also money for vacant positions that's budgeted within the budget for positions that either become vacant or are vacant and don't get filled for whatever reason.
Gotcha.
So there's that kind of money too, which adds up to quite a bit actually, because they're budgeted not only for the salary, but they're also budgeted for health insurance and et cetera.
Okay.
Yes, Supervisor Straw.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Supervisor Security and so forth. There has to be an element of caution here in terms of depleting your fund balance to levels that become very unhealthy for the budget moving forward. And do we have a fund balance policy? In other words, what percentage of our fund balance, you know, in ratio to our expenditures?
I don't think it's a percentage, but we have the low end is 10 million, and That's the bottom, and 16 is the top. So we're above that already.
All right, so you're hovering in the realm of 12, 13% of your expenditure budget should be set aside for a fund balance?
Well, I didn't look at it as a percentage when we had this adjusted. I looked at it as how much money do I need minimum on hand each month to pay the bills, and that was $10 million. So if we go below $10 million, then I'm gonna have to go out and start borrowing money to make payroll, to pay the bills. So I did not look at it as a percentage. I looked at it as how much cash do I need on hand to make sure that everything works here. And that was the 10 million, and we moved to 16 million. That was kind of a negotiated figure.
But it wouldn't hurt to adopt a fund balance policy to ensure that in the future, everyone understands that
There is a policy, that is a board resolution that was passed several years ago. It is part of the budget process, and it is our, matter of fact, the bond companies, when they evaluate us, look at that and say that they're very happy that you have that in your resolutions, and that you have stated that this is your fund balance policy.
But over the years, your expenditures increase, and now you have a fund balance policy that doesn't move with it. That's what I'm suggesting. You have a fund balance policy that was stabbed at a particular moment in time, and I'm suggesting a percentage might be a more accurate way to convey that in the future.
I'm all willing to talk about that.
So, yeah, so, you know, this has been a good year with sales tax revenue,
Right.
and we should count our blessings.
Absolutely.
But there's no assurance that next year will be just as good. Matter of fact, we have to be prepared for the years where it's not going to be as good. So I think that if we degrade our fund balance even further, we jeopardize our fiscal health moving forward.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I think that increase the appropriation of fund balance within the budget is, you need to be very, very careful about that. That's what got depleted the fund balance down to almost zero, was they were appropriating into the operating budget significant amounts of fund balance, and when the revenue's not there, there's no, fund balance is not a recurring revenue. So I think that increasing the appropriation of the fund balance beyond the $1.2 million and change, the $1.3 million that we have, I think is really problematic. Really, the better way is exactly what you've done, Mr. Chairman, is you've taken out of the budget expenses that are one-time expenses, which you're going to entertain next year, or the board's going to entertain next year, provided the sales tax continues the way it's doing. So we'll envelope out next year, the revenue stays good, to do those capital items that are not part of this budget. They're one and done kind of things. And we've done that twice before, I think. We've done it one year, we did it for $500,000. Another year, I think we did it for $1 million. And I much prefer that strategy. So, in effect, what you've done is exactly what I think is being discussed here, but you've done it in a different way. Yeah, I think you've done it in a better way, which is to cut the expenses in the budget that are capital type items, and we'll entertain those next year. And those we will pay out of the fund balance. But then you're not doubling or tripling the fund balance appropriation within your budget. That could be really problematic later on, because the revenue's not there. What do you do? What do you do when you have a part of your budget, say a $2 or $3 million fund balance appropriation? Where do you find that revenue? Well, you can't. So, I like the strategy that you have. And the other point is that maybe those capital items won't all be needed in January. They may fall at different times in the year, right? The cash might not be needed for different times in the year, and so we'll actually get a better picture as we move into 19, exactly where we are, especially relative to sales tax.
Yes, Claudia.
Thanks, Chairman. I mean, I understand the concerns about being sure we have plenty in the fund balance, so, you know, I'd like to see a way that we can reduce trim our expenses throughout. And I know you've done a good job, I can see that, but I think there's still places in our expense side that we could trim. echoing what Supervisor Diamond said about trying to lower that differential there.
Where do you want to start?
I'll take a look at it, make some recommendations.
Okay?
I just have a question, Frank, did you not trim some as department heads gave you their, let's say, wish list, there must have been areas that you trimmed before you put it in the budget, am I correct?
Yep. Most of them, I think just about all of them are on this, budget officer's recommendations for appropriations.
Okay. Well, I just knew that you probably had already done that.
There are some.
I'm sure he has, yes.
There are some increases, but most of it is reductions.
Okay.
Let's see, out of the road, we took $441,000. Machinery, we took $266,500. And out of the general fund, we took $511,340.
Well, Frank, I'd just like to say I think that you've done a very good job with this budget. I know you put a lot of time and effort into it, so sometimes to try to go back and nitpick what's been done doesn't always make a lot of sense to me. But
I'd like to second that, Frank. Being my first year here, this was it's a lot of work. And really, I want to thank you for...
I have lots of help.
Yeah.
Believe me.
That's good.
I agree that
Yes, Mr. Laurel.
Thanks. I was wondering if you could help me understand a little bit, because I really can't add a lot to the discussion today. But I notice in a lot of our committee meetings, there's budget transfers from an account to another account, back to another account. And I'm wondering if we need to tighten that up a little bit. Just from the standpoint of having our management team be a little more accountable to what they're putting into their budget, because to me it seems like there's a little fluff, right? There's a top-level budget, and that top-level budget for Department A gets rolled up by all these different line items. And then we start moving things around if they guess wrong. Now, I granted, they guess wrong, right? But, you know, is there ways to tighten that up a little bit to say, you know, guys, we're only going to give you the ability to do X amount, right? And this other stuff, get on budget.
Right.
Make it happen.
Yes.
I do think, at least when I was budget officer, and I believe they do it, they look at last year's actual expenses. If the code goes up, you know, they have a lot more codes than we have on a town budget. I mean, you know, simpler on a town budget. But, you know, I do think if they look at their codes and they say, okay, we only need $500 for subscriptions, we'll just use that. So, you know, and we only spent $250 last year, they're going to reduce that. But I do think, you know, they're going to reduce that type of thing. It does work out. Now, you know, we see a lot of big transfers in salaries. You know, and it's a best guess estimate.
Right.
You take your number of employees in a department, you multiply it by what they're going to earn, and you hope that it's going to be right, and you hope that all those positions are going to be filled. Sometimes it doesn't work out, so then you have to do that as far as point one. But I do think, Mike, in all honesty, that they do look at past year's expenses and try to adjust them. And every now and then there's something that comes up in equipment or this or that. But I believe, at least when I was on board, we would always look at what the actual was, the point of view, and then reduce it down if you can, or increase it if you can.
Yeah, we actually went back 4 years, so of the actual for 4 years. So if you see a trend, you know, where they always have money left over.
Well, we did that with ballots one year.
We would take that
I
out.
thought elections was going to kill us. We said you don't need 150,000 ballots when only 50,000 people vote. And my gosh, you thought we'd, you know, and so I know that we've done it. I don't know. I know there seems to be a lot of transfers being done.
Yeah, as far as the individual transfers, you know, I guess you could try to do that through the budget process. I don't know if you would get there though, because that,
No,
it
it's
gets
not
back
big,
to a
it's the budget
department.
process, it's the realization of as we go through the year, what's happening, right? And of course, you have to shift, you have to have that ability to meet your top line budget, right? But I'm thinking that maybe we just look a little bit tighter when we start doing some transfers. And saying, is there an opportunity for us to say, no, do a better job next year?
Well, I think it's, you know, another thing, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
I went to a different seminar a week ago on budgets and this, and I think the reason why the county does so many transfers is because we break our budget down so minute. If you were, .4 is a .4. If we didn't have a .401, 402, 403, and 404, 405, you wouldn't see a lot of these transfers. You'd have a .4, you'd have contractual expense, so you wouldn't see half the transfers. I think because we budget in so many codes, am I right, Rob? We budget in so many codes. That's why you get so many transfers. If you only had 3 codes, .1 for your salaries, .2 for equipment, and your .4 for contractual, you wouldn't see this. But because we break it down so minute by going nth degree out there with your .4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And even though that's probably a better way to do it, so you see your actual expenses, if you listen to some people in a controller's office, they will tell you you don't need to do it that way. But that's why I think you see a lot of transfers, Mike. That's what I learned a week ago or 2 weeks ago when I went to a thing on budgeting. So I think that's why you see a lot of our transfers here, because we break down our codes so much. You won't see that in the town budget.
But it gives the people managing those codes
Oh,
the
absolutely.
ability to move money around,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And, you know, we want to tighten that up a little bit. Say,
But I think if you look at the .4 overall, you gotta look at that .4 overall and see how they did
Okay.
at the end of the year.
Right.
Look
Just
at-
a
look at-
question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I just, only because it piqued my interest when I heard somebody from the controller's office saying, well, the more .4s you put in there, the more transfers you're gonna have to do. You have to do it by law. That's why we do it, I believe. Right? Am I right, Rob? Did I pay attention good?
I guess you did.
In addition to what Supervisor Garrity said about our budget just being broken down into more divisions and more object codes, we also have, in my opinion, better controls here. For example, when I was in Saratoga County, I could move money on my own out of salaries into contractuals without the board knowing. We can't do that here. All of that has to go to the board. At the end of the year, after October, I could move money from one department into another. The only thing I couldn't do was cross a fund. So it's also a function of having better controls here than most counties have.
Mr. Chairman.
Just a couple of things. One, I'm happy to see our countryside is a little concerned with vacancy rate in countryside. It looks like they kept that budget in order, and that's a good thing. And it's good to see on the airport the net cost of the airport now is expected to be down to 239 from 18 of 546, and I suspect in 17 it was even higher than that.
Yeah.
If it even been as much as $600,000 or $700,000 for that, I think it's a tremendous trend on the airport, which over the course of a 10-year lease goes into the millions of dollars. So that's very significant. And I just point out that I think that public nursing home, those revenues come out of the reserve account for Westmount. So that's not a direct line to the property tax, because what we did is we took all the revenues we got at Westmount, we took much of it and we put it into a reserve account to pay for the legacy costs. I just would point that out to the supervisor, so that you know. Thank you. And Frank, I think same low tax, that's all right.
Frank?
Yes.
Chairman, please, I got a question again.
Sure.
And the more I read this, the more I'm getting a better understanding. It's a little bit different than the budgets that we put together, but the department, you got $623,739 budgeted in a contingency account. And that is for general spending, unanticipated expenses that may come up,
In the
rather than fund balance?
You're talking about the contingent?
Yes. extension account.
275,000 of it is for, you know, we run short or we need money for an item.
So it's money that you could use for an unanticipated expense.
340-some thousand of that is for settlement of a,
Okay, you did
the
mention that,
contract.
okay, all right, thank you.
And as I say, that's going on 2 years, so that's why it's so much. Anything else?
No, so I concur, I think you did an amazing job, Frank, but are you looking for a resolution today to move this on to the full board, or?
No, I'll bring it to you next Friday.
Okay, all right.
There you go.
Then after that, it's
Public
all
hearing
yours.
already.
You can do whatever you want.
So if we have any recommendations, we would make those at the next meeting?
Well, it's what'll happen is not this Friday, but November 2nd.
Okay.
I'll present a tentative budget. If the board adopts a tentative budget at that time, then that budget is set for a public hearing at the next, the November board meeting. Then after the public hearing, the board's free to do whatever they want to do with it.
Okay.
You know, if you got the votes, you can change whatever you want to change.
Thank you.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn. By Mr. Strauss, seconded by Ms. Fraser. We're adjourned.
Here, isn't there?